What's up, guys? This is Chris with HakOhio, and welcome to our introduction tutorial. And we're just going to go over some real basic stuff here in the first video of what we're going to be doing, kind of why we're going to be doing it, and also some of the tools that you're eventually going to need in the next couple videos. If you haven't been yet, our site is ohwebsolutions.com. I know that has nothing to do with HakOhio, but we also do some web design as well, so that's on the domain it's at. And we're still working on it right now. We don't have a forum section open or a members section yet, but we will here soon. And we're actually going to set up the members section at the same time we do tutorials to kind of go over some of the security issues regarding setting up a database and things like that. I'll explain that later. So basically we're going to be going over the main differences between hackers and cyber criminals, however they are not the same, and some of the reasons why, some of the legal issues, and also a lot of different techniques used by hackers. We're going to be going over some wireless hacking, wireless networks, also some online stuff such as your, like Facebook account, email account, websites, things like that. We're going to be going over a lot of stuff, and then eventually get into some coding and programming as well. So let me say this before we go any further. The reason we're doing this is just to educate and so that you understand the difference between a hacker and a criminal. And we're certainly not showing you all the stuff that we're going to be so you can go out and commit crimes with it. So please note that we are absolutely not responsible for what you do with this information. All the hacking that we're going to do on the tutorials, we've had permission to access those networks and those websites. So we're not going to be committing any crimes, and hopefully you won't either. That's not why we're doing this. We're actually focusing on the end of security to protect networks and websites against criminals. So please understand that. And some of the tools we're going to be using, and actually in the next video I work on, I'm actually going to go over how to install the stuff we're going to need. But if you want to go ahead and head on over to, it's BackTrack-Linux.org, or you can just go to Google and Google BackTrack, and it should be the first one. And here is the home page of their site. This is the operating system that we're actually going to be using throughout most of the tutorials. We will be doing some work in Windows, but most of it's simply going to be to point out the vulnerabilities in Windows and why it's such really a dangerous operating system to use. So there really won't be anything to download for Windows other than maybe a text editor, and I'll go over that here in a minute. I wouldn't go ahead and download anything here yet. I'm going to go over in the next couple videos how to do it and how to set it up. The BackTrack is a Linux-based operating system. It's actually based off the Ubuntu version of Linux. And if you're watching this video in this beginner series, then I'm assuming that you probably have never worked with Linux before. And it is a lot different than Windows in the sense that it's basically a command line-based operating system. Meaning that, let me minimize this here. On your Windows here, you have all your icons, your desktop, and it's basically just a point-and-click system. You don't have to do much to open a program or install it or really do anything, which is one of the reasons that Windows is a little bit more vulnerable. And Linux, even though they do have a graphic interface and a desktop, and a mouse, pointer, and icons and everything, at some point you have to use the command line, because Linux is not set up to be just a point-and-click operating system. You're not just going to click on something, hit install, and everything's done for you. You actually do it from a command line. So if that's something that you're not comfortable with yet, or you haven't had any experience with, you're definitely going to want to go over some of this stuff before you actually install this and try and get going on it. One of the many good places you can go online, there's tons of free websites and free tutorials, is this site here, and it is linuxcommand.org, all one word. And they have a bunch of information over here that teaches you about the Linux shell, the scripting, the commands, the kind of the how and the why. So it's a really good site to check out before you download the Linux operating system, so at least you'll have an idea of what we'll be doing. Even though we will be using the graphic interface for some of the things, you're going to have to use the command line for most of it. So in the next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and go over how to get BackTrack. It is completely free. It's open sourced. You are going to need one of two things prior to the next video. One is going to be either a USB drive or flash drive, a minimum of 4 gigs. If you can do 8, that'd be great. If not, just at least 4. The operating system itself, is I believe around 2 gigs. And we definitely want to have some extra room on the drive, and I'll go over that later, why we want that. So if you have an 8, that'd be great. If not, a minimum of a 4 gig. Or you can use a DVD if you obviously have a DVD burner. Either one of these is fine. And again, in the next video, we're going to go over how to get BackTrack, how to set it up, what's the best way to do it. There's a few different options. The reason I wouldn't do it just yet, if you don't know what you're doing with it really, is you do not want to replace your main operating system. If you're running Windows, you don't want to put BackTrack as your main operating system if you don't know how to use it, because you're going to run into a lot of problems. So we're going to go over a couple different ways where you can keep Windows and use the Linux operating system as well. And we will do that in our next tutorial. And we will start going over some basic wireless security. Is probably kind of the area where we're going to start. As far as I did say something about a text editor, and that would be the only thing really I would recommend at this point downloading for Windows, is a good text editor, because we will be doing some coding and programming eventually. There's a lot of versions out there, a lot of options. The one I use still is Notepad++ is what it's called. And you can see here. And it is completely free. If you just go to Google, I don't know what that's up there for, excuse me. And just Google Notepad and it'll pop up, ++, there it is. And it is a free download for Windows, so I would go ahead and probably get that at this point too. I wouldn't recommend using the traditional Windows Notepad editor, because it is absolutely horrible. This one is much better. At the same time, I don't recommend going out and getting, I've seen some people starting out, they'll go get Adobe Dreamweaver, or maybe even Microsoft Visual Studio if they plan on learning the ASP.NET development. And the reason I don't recommend that anyone get these editors when they start, number one, they're full of just tons of stuff that you're not going to understand or need for a while. Secondly, they do have to work for you. And if you're trying to learn, it's really not a good idea to get an editor that's going to auto-complete all your lines and all your tags. So Notepad++ does not do that. You do have to code everything by hand. So that'd be a good one to get. And on the next video, we will go over how to get BackTrack and start downloading that, and do a few BackTrack tutorials before we actually start our hacking tutorials. Alright, thanks guys. I'll talk to you later.